down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Hi-ho, everybody. This is Dave.
And Mackies.
Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That's the website's name. And that website is a great place. It's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations. And you can find those in the chat room. And it's also a fantastic place to get your merch. All the artwork for the merch is being done by A Mad Painter, another host of this station. Now, Mickey, I think we can recall last week's number of the show. But, you know, it's advanced by one, and this is now 601.
1 and 600.
You know, that's the linear thing. Even though the time isn't linear. Catch us on air, online, and anywhere using your smart device via an app. Or you can sit at home and listen on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. If you miss Solaris' show, like I did, because I fell asleep, lucky my alarm woke me up and wow, it's time for the show. Reverend Sean Whittington, that's better, I'll fix that in post, discussing his series Legion of Exorcist on the Travel Channel. How cool is that?
I saw the ads for this. I missed it, but I'm going to catch it because that's going to be some fascinating stuff.
Did you know, Mackie, you might not, but I think you do, the archives are free. Just gonna...
No.
Yes. They are. And that's how you can catch it. You missed the show? Don't worry. I can binge the 2 hours, on my way to work on the train. Because it's available via MP3. I don't think there's a device on the entire planet that doesn't play those. So get yourself some really cool shows and possibly entertain another couple of hosts to see if you like other shows. And don't forget to share what you know and what you learn with other people in the real world. And when they go, where'd you find that out? You just tell them. Tell them straight up. Hey, guess what? That's Revolution Radio. Where can I get that? Well, you can listen. Just take this recording back a little and you'll hear the ways to be able to listen to it. You can also just listen directly through the website. And I think TalkStream Live still does, has a link in there as well. If you're that way inclined, then you can share those on Facebook. Guess what, Mickey? I am at home and therefore I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country. How about yourself?
From the Rug territory.
Nice. And both Mickey and I, as individuals and Shiny Side Out, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Mickey, I was out and about today. I was driving my car. It is something I like to do, but it was all about driving it for other people's purposes. I liked taking my daughter shopping.
Nice.
We both kind of like spending money, right? When you go to the shops. She's very frugal. Yesterday she went to in America you call it the thrift stores, and she popped some tags, whatever that means. I think that's buying brand name stuff for the cheap at the thrift store. We have these are charity stores here, or op shops. We call them opportunity shops. So I took her today to get some stuff that she liked to match some of the things that she'd purchased in the thrift store. Oh, what a great experience to get out. But it's hot. How is it so hot outside?
It's hot. It's a heat wave. It's
in the beginning of spring.
It's never been this hot.
It's 17 days past winter.
Yeah. Look, in perspective, we had 35 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
I want to say it's about 90. Let me see, Fahrenheit to Celsius scale. It's hot. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. But
that's where it is on the scale. It's hot.
Yeah. So suffice it to say, here we go. Fahrenheit, Celsius. Let's say that's 35. 90. Yeah, I was right. 95 degrees.
Nice.
95 degrees Fahrenheit, if you are that way inclined. That's hot. And it's sunny, and it's not raining, and we've got a lake near us. The lake is already decreasing its levels quite significantly, where you can see rocks you couldn't see before.
Oh wow, it's dehydrating.
It
What do you
is.
add
It
to
is.
dehydrated water?
Goodwill and love.
Water?
I don't know.
I think you add water
Water
to
is
it, right? And
I
that
think that's a good idea.
that replenishes it.
But yeah, no, you're right, Dave. It is hot, and it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot for about 5 or 6 days, so another 4 or so days to come. And it has never, at least as long as I've been in Australia, which is now over 30 years, it has never been this hot in September. In summer, yeah, that's normal. I mean, 35 is not unusual. We get it all the time. But of course, Dave, what does that mean? If it's 35 at the beginning of spring, as a heat wave, then the heat wave we can expect in summer is going to be Dubai 50-degree heat wave, I reckon.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think we're averaging 10 degrees above the long-term average for this year so far.
I think we have to adjust the average.
No, keep it the same. So we've got at least a measuring stick to which we're seeing the current temperatures. Because you know what? If I talk to anybody, let's say sheeple, I say I've got to say the sheeple, and I'm not being critical of them in particular. It's just
really.
It's wait.
I think you, sir, are a moron. Not meant as a criticism. It's just a friendly guideline.
It's a critique. Right?
It's a critique.
No, it's like
yes.
a person should not be judged so much on what they know, because they might choose an information source that is just either government driven or the message is driven to them that way. And look, they don't know any more than that, and that's why I like it. Like they're not inquisitive, Mackie, because the work home shops triangle. You go to work, you come home, you need something, you go to the shops, and done, right? If that's your whole life, and you don't need to know anything outside of that because it'll impact that triangle, then they just go, oh, I just shut down. I don't want to know. Don't tell me, Dave. Don't. So I don't tell them anymore. I go, well, so what's your thought on this little heat wave we're having, right? And they go, oh, it's always been hot. It gets hot.
The sun is hot.
Yes.
If I boil water, that's pretty hot.
Yeah. And wind happens. So, and it's dry. I've got fireys, Mickey. I've got a bunch of fiery friends, right? And I don't mean these are people who run through the bush, setting it on fire. No, these are people who are, a frontline first responders. So, RFS guys, and they're posting stuff in their own social media, going, "Wow, we're all at the standby because we've got a 23-kilometre-hour gust from the northwest. We've got 5% humidity or some ridiculous amount of humidity. That's nothing, right? And it's this hot, and everything's perfectly dry. So they're all sweating because they know that they're going to get a call any minute. So they're living on, what do you call it, tenterhooks? Is that no?
Tenterhooks. Yeah.
They're I don't know, adrenaline's surging. They don't know when they're going to get a call. So so when I'm politely describing someone whose knowledge is only being fed by the machine, that's a nice way of putting it. Listen, look what I did. And I call them the sheeple. It's only to get their opinion, because even though I watch all of those media outlets, and I see those messages, and I hear what they say, how they say it, what are they packaging to consume, and then I know when I talk to someone if they're sprouting that inherited opinion from which source, right? I know I've said this 1,000 times. So that's why, even though it sounds rude, right, when I talk to the sheeple, these are just the, let's call them the unacknowledged, right? That's probably the kindest thing I could do. So yes, Mackie, it's going to get hotter, and next week, during the week, we're getting closer to 100 degrees. And if this were summer today, yes, we'd be in the 50s, I reckon.
look, I have no doubt. And look, out there in Australia, please be prepared. But then I mean, have your go bag, especially if you're in wooded or bushy areas.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking seriously about buying oxygen masks and such, just in case. Yeah, because who knows if I'm going to need it. But it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah,
right?
so for Meki's point here, if the bushfire smoke is so thick that you can become debilitated by it or suffer an injury or not be able to save yourself or worse, your own children, then absolutely do it. And I support it. I know that we have it, and that's something that's already on our thing. We've got a whole bunch of really cool things in our go bags, not just water and some snacks, because you never know how long you're going to need those go bags for. But we have personal power devices which are solar charged. So if you run your electronic device minimally, don't look at the kids for that. They'll be going, Dad, can I watch some YouTube? No, you're not going to watch YouTube on my phone. No, we need it for emergencies. So, but we've all got one of these little chargers. They're really good. I just got mine at Kmart actually. And look, I don't, not sponsored by them or anything, but they charge really quickly, and then you just plug your phone in overnight onto it, and you get a full charge off it. So, and if you need it, that's where it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, look, and that's a really good idea. That's a really good idea.
So besides that and some potable water, you need something. And if you're kind of survivalisty kind of person, you'll realise that after the first rain, when there's a bushfire, the water is contaminated. So it's not something you can readily drink. So you'll need a water filter and possibly even those tablets that you can put into water as a worst case scenario to ensure it's clean when you drink it.
And there's this called, I think it's a straw of life or something.
Oh yes.
It's like, look, yeah. I've got a few of those, and they're good for a few liters of water. You can just put them into any water source and drink.
Yeah.
It's an on-the-spot filtration. I mean, if it's toxic water full of heavy metals, I probably wouldn't do it. But if it's just like a puddle or something.
And there's an oil slick on top. No, probably not.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. Or like, maybe dead deers floating in the water source. No, but other than that, it should give you some potable water to drink straight from the source. So something to consider, because it's easy. It's small. It's easy. Everyone can carry on their body, no problem at all. No? So
that your survival pen. So I was gonna make a joke, and I just maybe thought it was a terrible thing that needed a segue to get to it. But you can't put one of those straws into the ocean.
No, it's not a desalinization.
No, and it doesn't matter how much ability you have to consume water through a straw. You're not going to be able to use osmosis, right, to desal that water. Anyway, the terrible segue, which that was a contributing factor, was what if there was a lot of bodies in the water? Like, where is it on the planet, Meki? Where was that 10,000, possibly 20,000 that have died?
Yeah, look, as we all know, that there was massive rain which led to the bursting of 2 dams in Libya. Yes. And now what they're experiencing, this is really horrible. Look, if you live near a beach, just imagine thousands of bodies washing up on it, because that's what's happening not up and down, but along the North African coastline now. Thousands of bodies are washing up on beaches. Not one, not two, not 50. Thousands of bodies are washing up. So you get, look, Sydney, we got City Beach, Bondi, Manly's pretty close. 1,000 bodies would pretty much fill up
that would
Bondi,
fill up the beach, yeah.
Or Manly. That'd be that. Look, just imagine all these sunbathers just floating up, face down.
Floating up face down.
It's pretty.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sobering. I'm telling you, it's a reality now. Could it have been prevented? Yes. Yes, of course. There was maintenance issues with the dam.
They could have
But
warned
trust me,
people.
this is not the only. Yeah, this is not the only place in the world where maintenance will become an issue, or it will, become an issue that leads to catastrophe. Because the biggest problem in the world, from a maintenance point of view, and ancient and aging infrastructure, is the American electrical grid.
Mm-hmm.
The electrical grid in the United States is ancient, and it won't take much to take it out, to be honest with you. I mean, if you think about a really hot summer, and it hasn't really happened yet, for I guess, for not to the extent that it does for the southern hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
You guys haven't gotten really temperatures in the 50s yet. But when it does happen, and actually I'm worried for Australia, to be honest with you, because it could overload the grid here, right?
Well, they're already warning us in advance that there isn't enough power if we all put our air conditioning on.
Yeah, it'll be like when I was a child. I went to Turkey a lot to visit my relatives every summer holiday, right? And what they had were running outages in Istanbul. It's a massive city, of course. And there was, okay, we're gonna have water from 11 to 3 today, and electricity from 9 to 1 or whatever, right? Something like that. And it would be a rolling thing. Now, gas was always there, which is great. So you just had to make sure the pilot light is on so you can keep your water. But that was it. That was the reality. And we had like little buckets of water next to the toilet, just in case it became necessary to. Because it doesn't matter where the water comes from in your toilet.
That's
as long
right.
as the water pushes down whatever is in the toilet.
Yeah, as long as that continues to occur. Yeah.
Yeah, the water tank is just a luxury that we have these days. But a bucket will do just as fine. But yeah, look, this is a reality now for first world nations. I mean, Turkey was always a bit behind. It's not really a developing nation per se, but it really wasn't up to scratch with the rest of the first world, I'd say. And now we're getting into hot water, no pun intended, with the rest of the world, where our systems and our grids, our infrastructure, our pipes, all of that is now at risk, Dave. As you know, it's a thing now.
Yeah, look, it does worry me because this is the big question. In Australia, we know why. And how can we know the how? We know the why to the how can, right? So the question you've got to ask yourself is, if the government and private industry were supplying you with power as a nation, and however that makeup is formulated in the pie chart, I don't really care. It's their responsibility to provide us with power. And they should be scaling up and scaling out and doing all the things they need to do to make sure that they can continue to make margin on the supply of power to us. And now let's just say they're doing that. That is in their brief. They're certainly making more money than they've ever made ever. And yeah, they might have taken a little bit of a hit during COVID because of the coal price. But now the coal price is back to normal and they're charging us now for what it was like then. So this next year is going to be a bumper year for them. But what they're not doing is increasing their power production. Because I don't know, Mickey, wasn't there a thing? I don't know, WEF or something. I'm just going to vomit into a big bucket, and that's their excuse. Is that whatever is in there? Yeah, that's the reason. We just can't give power to everybody. And they've been telling us for 18 months. Oh, there's not going to be enough power. Hang on a minute. And why is that? Oh, because we're trying to go renewables. Why?
Yeah, that's
so we're turning coal off.
Lie.
But why would you turn the coal off before we had a sufficient base load from the renewables you're putting in? Because if we're at 10% renewable coverage now, or 25% max, right, on a good day, where it's windy and sunny at the same time. Yeah, it's all a lie. It's all a lie. And so, so then, what is the truth behind why they're limiting, or what's the right word, Mackie?
It's scarcity supply. The same thing happens.
Scarcity. There you go.
I don't know if they still do it, but the telecommunications companies in Australia, they throttled the bandwidth on the cell towers around the major cities on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve. So just to be clear, all the cell towers have enough capacity to handle pretty much, a fairly decent load. Okay. Yep. So what they do is, and I know this because I've spoken to the people that went to, I guess, gear down or switch down the towers. So the actual engineers that did it. So they switched it down, the capacity, because there was a flag fall charge. So every time you make a call, they charge you, I don't know, 5 cents, 10 cents, whatever. I can't remember, right? And even when the call fails, you try again, and again, and again, and again. And of course, New Year's Eve is when most people make most calls to most people. And that was just ka-ching, ka-ching. So it was a deliberately induced scarcity supply issue. It wasn't like the infrastructure couldn't handle it, but it was in the company's interest to switch down the capacity in order to make a lot more money. This is the same. Because if you create scarcity, right, then you can charge more. Certainly. You're going to supply industry first, and all the noisy, the squeaky wheels you supply first and consumers last. And you will pay whatever. If you don't have power, you will be very flexible with what you are willing to pay. Okay.
So the desire in Australia is that we stop burning natural gas as well. That's the town supplied gas. When you get cooked, when you get connected to your town supply and you have a
Freudian slip.
Yes, it was. You have a gas cooktop. In Australia, we call that natural gas. And so I'm going to say that they've now stopped new connections to natural gas in Victoria and South Australia. And this is coming to your town, wherever you live in Australia. They're trying to turn that off now for some reason. I still don't get it. All they had to do to fix this, because burning that gas and turning it into carbon is less dangerous than the gas itself. So you've got to take it somewhere, right? I don't think we can get to carbon neutral, actually, in real life, carbon neutral, at all. I think that's an impossibility. It
will never, ever happen.
Oh, well, you're going to have to stop.
Sorry, I lied, Dave.
It will.
It will happen.
Uh-huh.
When everybody is dead.
When the last person gasped their last breath. That's right. I know.
There you go. Carbon neutral. Hooray!
And that'll be in winter when there's no electricity to warm anybody up. I know.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my point. Truly is, look, it's a great idea. Let's just go into it a little bit slower. And I don't think when you look at the percentages on the planet, outsourcing your power production to somewhere else and having these huge, thick undersea power cables, I don't think that's going to help whoever, right? Look, while I'm saying that, I'm sure there's people going, can't we do that? What a great idea. Let's just do that. Let's like the EV thing. Did you know I was doing some examination into how much carbon is truly produced by an EV, a pure EV. And in Australia, because renewables are such a small amount of the power that you might consume at your house to charge your EV, if it were coal, for instance, and you take something like, not a Ford Ranger, but something gas guzzling, I don't know. I'm not going to use the vehicle, but say like an equivalent kind of car. The amount of carbon over 10 years is around about half the carbon for a pure EV, as opposed to a petrol or diesel vehicle. That's in emissions.
Mm-hmm.
Half. You've only really halved it, because you're truly still outsourcing your carbon. You didn't make it specifically, plus all the production carbon, but to get to the end point, and over 10 years, it's only about half, where a hybrid car actually gets there quicker, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's charging as you're driving. Does that make sense? So a pure EV that you've got to charge up actually produces more carbon than one that was a hybrid. And if you could do an E85 hybrid you would then be the lowest emission vehicle that we would make besides a bicycle. Unless there was a lot of curries. That was a joke. So why aren't we doing E85? That's 15% non-renewable or net new carbon. Why are we doing that? It does my head in. So they've just gone all these stupid directions trying to fix what they think is truly the cause, and then you find out that it's less than a tenth or 1% of domestic travel is 1% of the total carbon emission of our nation. It's totally ludicrous. Anyway, there's nothing else we can do about it except for just wear it. There isn't a person now that can be spoken to on having a realistic conversation and a learning platform where they haven't already consumed so much Kool-Aid that they're going to think you're mad. At least trying to bring this up.
Oh, yeah.
You talk to someone with an EV, they go, oh, no, I don't make any emissions. No. How do you power it? Unless you're pure solar off your roof and you've got to wait a while to be able to charge
Even
your car,
then,
forget it.
The production of solar cells is actually quite toxic to the environment, believe it or not.
Yeah, it is. And it has heavy metals in it. It's not just silicon.
And rare earth and all that.
That's right. And then they have a life and there's the destruction of that. And if you really... I know I spoke about this maybe 10 years ago, that the car companies, to be able to make vehicles that were recyclable, you make them responsible for the recycling.
Yes, and good luck with that.
Well, it's not going to happen. But when we made... You've watched the shrinking of labeling on our high consumption products, like Coca-Cola cans, for instance. They had all the different ways they've been able to paint their can to identify it, and now their bottles, their labels shrink, their amount of ink shrinks. They end up making something that is purely recyclable. Right? So if they didn't do that, I still like glass. I think glass is a much better thing.
Glass, if I can, everything I buy is in glass. Mm-hmm. If I can. Mm-hmm. And these days, it's getting easier again. A lot more things come in glass then. Simply because people have had it.
Farm milk.
Yeah.
You can take a glass bottle and get it refilled.
Glass is the new plastic. What? And I grew up in the 70s, obviously, mm-hmm. And late 60s. And when I went to the supermarket, all bottles were glass.
That's right.
There wasn't a single plastic bottle on the shelf, not a one.
Yeah.
Coke and Fanta, all the lemonades, sparkling water, milk, juice, any kind of juice, yes. All juices.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't not even Tetra Pak.
Tetra Pak that's right. That was later.
I think it was the late 70s, I want to say.
And
we had
yes.
triangular.
That's
Remember
right.
the triangular Tetra Pak packs?
Yes, I do.
Remember those?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't see them anymore, but that's what I remember. And
you chewed the corner of it without having to open it properly.
That's right.
So you're being radical, yeah.
I'm just being ancient. No, but the point though is that really we have we've come a long way just to end up where we started.
Mm.
And I recently watched a documentary about the inventor of the plastic bag. His daughter said he would be horrified by what is happening in the world with plastic bags, because his idea was this. This was his idea. He said, it'd be so much easier if everybody could just carry a small little bag with them all the time, and all their shopping or whatever they carry just goes in there. It's just something they carry all the time, like, reusable plastic like we're trying to do today. And that was a really good idea.
Yeah.
Of course, that never happened. And people just kept throwing this stuff away because that's what you do. You throw stuff away. That's who we are. Right? His idea was not that. So don't blame the guy who invented it. His idea was, hey, I want to make life a bit easier for people. So I have this plastic bag. You have it in your bag, in your back pocket for all, and if you happen to go shopping, there's your little bag. Done. Done. Good idea. Good idea.
I like those kind of things that go full circle. I really do. That's actually pretty funny that it should go full circle. The other thing is they weren't single-use plastic bags. I don't
No.
remember ever coming home and throwing the plastic bag away. We had a cupboard that you put all the plastic bags in, and then we would reuse them. We would use them either for rubbish to then throw them away,
Yes.
and you're putting rubbish in bags anyway.
Yes.
You're buying a single-use plastic rubbish bin liner. Yeah? You can't get me wrong on that definition. Right? Good on your haters, right? They hate on me all the time. So you would use it to bring the things home, and then you would tie, because the handle's tied so well, right? And you just pop them in the bin. There you go. So I got 2 uses out of that, government. Right? I just did that the English to the French 2-finger thing, saying I've still got 2 fingers to use my bow and arrow. I'm an archer.
That's right.
That's where it came from.
But look, and this is really interesting, because what we created, and I remember this because I didn't grow up in a throwaway society, and certainly my grandparents did, right? And they kept stuff forever, and they repaired things, because that was just what you did. You repair things, you just throw away. But over the years, and I didn't really come to that realization until fairly recently, but I saw an increase in the trash that ends up in nature. Things we thoughtlessly just leave. Think about it this way for a second. There was a time when there was no fast food.
That's right.
Just wasn't there. Didn't exist. And therefore no fast food wrappings, no, be it plastic or paper, doesn't really matter. No disposable drink cups, none of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
All the bottles were glass that you had, right? Now, if you leave it somewhere, that's a hazard, but it's not a toxic hazard per se, right? And glass eventually, it does break down. It does take a while, but there's really nothing in glass that nature can't handle. And you would pack a picnic, and usually in a cloth or in a cheese. These wax, and they're coming back now. It's like a wax cloth that you keep things fresh in, and it's coming back slowly.
Yeah, that's right. Like sandwich wrap.
It's like bingo, right? Yeah. And we just didn't throw things away because there wasn't anything to throw away. I remember McDonald's in Germany came to not to my hometown, not to the next town either, but to 3 towns over in the 1980s.
Yeah.
The mid-80s, and I would ride my bicycle 15 kilometers for a cheeseburger.
Yeah, I had the fillet of fish. That was my favorite.
Yeah, nice. And then you ride back, and by the time you get home, it's all burned off. So
that's right. All that sugar got you there, and the hope got you there, and the sugar got you home.
Sugar gets you back. That's right. But we have taught people over the intervening decades now, between, let's say, the 50s and now, that it's okay to just throw stuff away. So I walk from my house to Woolies. I've got a Woolies near here. It's a 6-7 minute walk, and I see rubbish in the street.
That's right.
When there are bins, by the way, there are public bins that are emptied. It's not like they're not there. And I look at the little duck pond, and there's like bottles. It's not terrible. It used to be worse. Now it's actually not too bad. They cleaned it up recently. But there were shopping trolleys in there.
Yeah, someone had to clean it up, and that's repulsive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, but this is the mentality that we taught people. It's okay to throw stuff away. Not a problem. Just chuck it. It's not your problem. And and I hate to say this, but the worst case of that I saw in India. And that's why I thought, and I wrote this long piece on my Word blog a while ago, where I looked at India when I was in India, and I saw the future for the rest of the world in 50 to 60 years. Because in India, people of what I've observed are fiercely house proud. Fiercely. Right? They keep their house fastidious, and it's beautiful and wonderful. You go in and you go, oh my God, this is one like the Taj Mahal on the inside, right? But as soon as you step outside in the street, not my problem.
That's right.
Not my problem. And I give you a simple example. This is true. I'm not bashing anyone. This is actually what happened. I was in Delhi, in the suburb of Delhi, and I was in a 5-star hotel. And across the road from the hotel was a big building. They were building something, a big lot, right? And across the road, there was a dead dog when I arrived in the ditch. Oh. Nothing happened. There was a lot of dogs in India running around. That's all good. But I was there for 6 days, and so was the dog.
Oh.
So so was the dog. So it's really interesting where you are fiercely protective of your own, but this spirit of, and it didn't seem to be like a sanitation department either,
Wow.
like that takes care of the rubbish in the street. I don't know. Maybe they're on strike, or was they on a bad week? I don't know.
Let's hope that was the case. Yeah.
But I can see that happening in the rest of the world. So I think India is just ahead of the curve in that space, or at least, or at least in Delhi. And then I think the rest of the world is following suit because I see people just thoughtlessly throwing stuff away when all you have to do. I teach my kids. So let's say we have takeout, which we do once in a while. It usually comes in a bag. So you eat your takeout.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a home or outside, doesn't matter. But you can take all the rubbish you produce, you put it in the bag your takeout came in.
That's right.
You put it in the bag. And then you close the bag and you take it with you. If my kids produce rubbish on the way where we are, like they might be eating a lolly or who knows, maybe a sandwich that was wrapped in paper, I take that and I put it in my pocket.
Yep.
It's not that hard.
I know.
Right? That's what you do. And then whenever you remember or at your earliest convenience, usually at home because I forget, I empty my pockets and I chuck it in the bin. It's not rocket science and it isn't hard, but it is something that, and this really concerns me, right? And I'm bringing it up here because it speaks to how our civilization is devolving. Yeah, for the longest time we did well. We tried to keep things, maintained and then clean and tidy because dirt breeds disease and disease kills cities. That's what used to happen in the olden days. I mean, cholera is a toilet disease. Okay?
That's right.
Not to put it
too mildly.
Not to put. Well, yeah, and most, and see, this is the problem as well now, Dave. And this is something that worries me a lot. Now we spoke earlier about Libya, going full circle almost, and you got thousands, potentially up to 20,000. Right now there are 10 or 12,000 people dead, but potentially 20,000 corpses.
Yeah.
And that's 20,000 potential disease vectors. As people keep dying in greater and greater numbers all over the world due to various causes, I mean, there's so many things that can kill us. I guess if they burn, that's okay because it's sort of cauterized in a little bit. But there are going to be a lot more bodies to deal with, and especially in a flood situation where you don't get to the bodies, and even if there are no bodies. The flooding itself that then mixes with the sewer water is in and of itself enough to cause disease. So we are going to look in the future.
Not even sewer water, just the only water that you might think is potable water.
Yeah.
It just contaminates everything.
There'll be massive outbreaks, and I see cholera, I see typhoid. I see dysentery, and of course with flooding, then you get massive pools of standing water. Perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes, right? And you get malaria, Ross River.
That's right.
Look, it doesn't end, and still we get the 3 monkeys on the wall, my friend.
So, we were driving down the path of all of the idiotic things that seem to be being pushed so fast upon us. In the guise of fixing our environment and making everything better. But who knows who created the idea to proceed with it with very little information backing the success of it. Now I say this because seeing a sea turtle and those islands of plastics floating in the ocean, and that's awful, but they are fixing that up now. There are large vessels using that and collecting it and recycling it because it's a very clean source of plastic, right? And people are making things out of it, like, I don't know, multi-use carry bags and things like that. I'd prefer if they, made some of that indestructible decking material. That'd be great. But I'm not going to buy that. But the thing is, Mackie, the call to replace plastic straws with paper straws has been on my radar for a while, and there's a number of stories, and I've got one here from the Canadian Plastics 80 Years page. So, yes, there's some bias, but they're some of the very few that are willing to run the story. And it says Belgian researchers found that 18 out of 20 brands of paper straws contained long-lasting chemicals that can cause damaging health issues.
Yeah, that's a shock.
And it does go on to talk about PFAS, which is the perfluoroalkyl substances. They're PFAS, as they're known, and these paper straws had them in abundance. And they're those forever chemicals that you find in rain and snow and the wind, Meki. Just they're in the air, they're everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look on the planet, they're there.
It's toxic wind, everyone.
Yeah, so they're all known as forever chemicals. And, well, these paper straws, which you've got to consume really quickly, your beverage, because they kind of dissolve. They're not like the good old wax straws that just the wax and paper. No, these have a whole bunch of other things, and it's just awful for us. It's actually worse than the plastic.
Yeah.
All we had to do was learn how to be responsible with the plastics that we used and recycle. Know how to recycle. Ensure that they only produce recyclable plastic items. So the biggest complaint, Mackie, from the consumer is, well, it looked like it had the triangle with the curved edges and the three arrows, like a revolving three arrows, which is the indicator that it can be recycled. That was stamped into it. But under further examination, the black trays that you get for meat are not recyclable, even with the stamp. Did you know that?
I know it now.
You do know it now, and that's official. It's official. It's there. So, the confusion around what is and what isn't recyclable, and what can and what can't be recyclable, there's no education there, and they should all be using. If you just used some kind of thermoplastic that, like PET, but one that didn't have any of those forever chemicals in the plastic itself, then you could have a reasonable existence. Or you could just wrap it in butcher's paper like they did in the olden days. Mackie, we know when you went to the butcher, and that's what butcher's paper was. It was that white paper, right? They put it in a plastic bag, then they wrapped it, and the plastic bag you disposed of, and that was it. It was the least amount of your worries was the plastic bag.
Look.
So
for the longest time,
the knee-jerk reactions kill me. That's what kills me.
Yeah, but no, look, I hear you. But the thing, no, you're right. You're right in saying that. But for the longest time, our ancestors, and I mean, not our, great grandparents, but our parents and even our grandparents, got along without
Just
any
fine.
of that stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
We there was no plastic. There was Bakelite. Remember Bakelite?
Woo.
There was wood and other materials that could be used for stuff. It could make stuff out of it. We used to use beeswax and cloth to, like I said, to create these wrapping things.
That's right.
For cheese, for example.
We actually have
things.
those at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the olden days, they wrapped fish and chips in newspapers. Why?
That's
Because newspapers were sterile.
That's
believe it or
right.
not.
Yeah.
And that's just what I mean. The thing is, we didn't need any of that stuff, but it is cheap and fast.
Mm-hmm.
It is more. Look, the truth is, it is more expensive to produce wooden radios, for example, right? Like we had a wooden radio, like a music box thingy, right?
Yep.
And I got my grandfather's here, like a Saba, S-A-B-A, with a little vacuum tube for tuning. I love it.
Nice.
And it's a wooden housing. It's wood and glass, and no plastic. And
nice.
And you're thinking, well, we did do it. It wasn't like we couldn't do it. We just choose not to do it. That's it. We're choosing not to do it. That's it. That's really it. Let's make other choices. Let's make some good choices for a change. How's that? I'd like to.
You're funny, Mickey. That's going to catch
I
on.
know. I'm here
I'm
always.
sure of it.
Oh, dude.
So anyway, yeah. So look, all the things that we seem to be doing by forced wokeness, if you want to call it that.
I love that. I love it.
Not a calm, collective, approach to let's start making it better in the future, because I think while that ship sailed quite some time ago, that there would still be a way of being able to do that, not reactionary just for votes and not just to make the headlines tomorrow in the news or every day in the 24-hour news cycle. One thing that keeps coming to mind, look, I believe that we probably have already got some kind of 0 point, like free energy from thin air. It doesn't break the laws of physics. It's just connecting an aerial, picking up something that we're probably told that doesn't exist. Right. The same as microwaves. Microwaves, you can actually pick up a couple of volts just from the air. Did you know that? There's experiments with some foil and wires that you can do, and you can just have an aerial, and you'll pick up the differential between the Earth and the atmosphere. It's actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. So you could, if you had an array of those, then you could charge your phone for free. Just putting it out there. You only need 12 volts. So
that's the truth.
Yeah, think about how you could do that wherever you live. Look, there's things that we're not being told stuff, and it's only so that they can perpetuate the current model for as long as they can to stay, to ensure that the system that exists now will still exist then. And the societal structure is such that who's rich now will still be rich then, and as long as there's someone to lord over, that's us, by the way, then they're going to be happy. Because it is, this WEF, Great Reset, is just all of those lords, self-appointed lords, have just decided to group together and say, well, we're going to rule over the planet. It's going to be our planet from now on, in what they call a stakeholder economy, where they're the stakeholders. We're not.
No, we are incidental.
No, as long as there's someone out the window they can lord over, that's fine. Well, maybe not out the window, because they could occupy their own island entirely, and we'd never be able to get to it with the limited resources that we were left with. So there's a bunch of resistance, Meki, to a whole bunch of stuff now that I'm seeing. It's all coming into my feed. I don't know whether I'm being socially programmed to observe it so I can speak out against it, or that's just going to end up as a tall poppy kind of thing.
I want to say yes.
Yes. You've got to be very careful what you listen to.
Look, yes. The answer is yes, you do, because again, whatever you hear is what they want you to hear.
That's right.
That's really the key takeaway here.
There's no accidental truth getting to you. Let's say that.
No, that's the truth. But how do you know? Well, if it is on a commercial available channel, if it is sponsored by large corporations or governments, then the answer is it's part of the official message. Now, the thing is this, though: not all official messages are bad. That's a silly thing to say. Mm-hmm. They just sprinkle them in there. Because the best way to misinform is to inform you a little bit and then just load you with BS. Mm-hmm. But we'll give you... It's like this thing... Sorry I had to bring it up, but the recent NASA revelations... We need more money to figure out what this thing is. That was the message that NASA gave us right after the Mexicans gave us 2 mummified or allegedly mummified alien
That's
corpses.
right, yep.
So I thought it was quite funny, actually. And this chief NASA scientist, or the head of NASA, whatever, was confronted with it. And he goes, well, let's just see how credible this is. And that was pretty much all he had to say about that.
That's right.
And, yeah, so no, we don't know what it is. We don't have enough evidence, so give me more money, which is a typical thing for scientists to say. And I can't really blame them. I dig it. It's okay. It's all good. But
there's no evidence. That was their line. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after all the things that have come to light, independently, officially, and again, this testimony of, and I forget the gentleman's name, Dave.
David Grush.
Grush, thank you, Grush. Yeah, he was his credibility, I think is the word, was put to question.
To the test, yeah.
Yeah, is he a credible witness? Is he not? Who knows? Now, if you make it to a congressional hearing, chances are you're not a muppet.
Yeah,
hey, maybe you are. In that case, the whole system is just completely failed. But it's really it's interesting how we had it's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And this whole disclosure thing that we've witnessed is not organized well. I think to me, to be honest, it's confusing, and I think it's meant to be confusing. If I'm confused, you're confused. And I think that is probably the key outcome that they want: confusion. Not clarity. We don't want clarity. We like people to argue and not to be, clear.
Oh, that was the last. That's your point. Yeah, well, I agree. I agree totally. And look, one of those things, Mickey, that stood out to me this week was, because I've only got 3 minutes left, so was Biden's son Hunter being charged with a criminal offense for, this is how it's been, the charges have been laid, were about him. There's evidence from his laptop, believe it or not, where he was taking drugs and owned guns, but that disqualifies you from owning the guns legally. And therefore, he's, whatever the law says for that, but he's going to be tried on those, right? It seems like the Department of Justice have gone after ex-President Trump as hard as they can. All those impeachments didn't work. Now there's impeachment against, an investigation for impeachment against Biden. Trump is looking at charges. And I saw a thing, Mecca, that made me laugh. I nearly snorted milk out my nose. I was eating my breakfast cereal, reading my news stories for the day. And it was Putin telling the media about, I would have never thought the West would do this, right? Lock up your opponent. Yeah? What? Who does that? And of course,
I do this.
Yeah, I do this. Yes, we do this. Where was it? Like Indonesia or something? They did that recently. Wherever it was.
Correct.
He locked him up, and then he ran unopposed and won again for the 39th year. Right? Woo! Right? It's good to be
people,
him.
They love me.
They all love you, clearly, right? Except for the opposition guy who's rotting in jail now, and any of the others that might also be there. And so for Putin to make that observation, I think that's a powerful message for the rest of us. What have we turned into? Just how rotten is it at the top? How much corruption, those are all questions, how much corruption is there that this is what they've got to do now? And if you haven't noticed, Kamala Harris is now dolled up and in front of the camera again and saying very little. Wow. And I'm going to ask you, what do you think about that? Anyway, this is the end of the first hour. Coming up after is our second hour. I think it's sequential. And we're talking about the hypothesis and the epiphany. This is part 2 in a series of many to celebrate our 600th episode. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a second stream for the second hour.